Welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Claire from Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful, and I'm the Tackling Plastic Project Coordinator for our Tackling Plastic NI project. And it is a project that's funded by the Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs. And this is our second in a short series of Tackling Plastic webinars for Eco Schools Northern Ireland, which is run by Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful. So this particular one is focused on young reporters for the environment and focusing on plastic packaging. So I'm so excited to have PJ Marcellino with us today. And as many of you know him, he's a film director, producer, screenwriter, to name but a few. And he also started his career as an environmental journalist. And Erika Reyes is going to join him today. She's the founder of Wisebird, and she's going to share with us her challenges that she's been challenging businesses to make change. So PJ and Erika are from Canada, which is great to have us all connected today, and we'll hear from you and where you're from very soon. But we have a lot to get through today. So before I'm going to quickly introduce my colleagues and co-hosts, and then I'll hand over to PJ to tell us more. So just a quick note, you might have got, before I do that, you might have got an email from me already. We're not going to do the breakout rooms today, but PJ is going to do a series of interactive exercises, and I've sent you an email of how to access those and participate. If not, it'll be in our chat now as well to help you out there. So if I just quickly, Claire, if you want to say a few words, just to introduce yourself.
How you doing, folks? I'm also Claire. I'm Claire L. So you'll see in the chat if you want to interact with us. Just a little bit of housekeeping, guys. I'll be the chat moderator today. So below on the very bottom of your screen, you'll see there's a Q&A button. Please do feel free to send us your questions as we go through the webinar, and then PJ and Erika will give us some time at the end where we can answer those. We also have a chat function, so occasionally we'll ask you some questions and we'll interact with you on the chat function, so please make use of those. But just again, a little reminder, any questions, please keep those in the Q&A box, and hope you enjoy the webinar. I'm going to quickly introduce you to my colleague Francesca, who will tell us a little bit more about the YRE and the certificate today.
Hi everyone, I'm Francesca. I'm the Young Reporters for the Environment National Operator here in Northern Ireland, and I'm here just to introduce very quickly the certificates that we have available. I don't know if you can see my screen at the moment, but we have kindly received the authorization from the Foundation for Environmental Education to share with all attendees that are interested in getting an international certificate. So if you want one, please just drop me an email to francesca.tifalo@keepnorthernirelandbeautiful.org. Thank you.
Brilliant, thanks very much. PJ, over to you.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you so much, Francesca, Claire, and Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful for having me. Thank you to my friend Erika Reyes for joining me in this little session. So my challenge here, I'm going to introduce myself and my career as a YRE and how this all ties in with this precise moment. In actually less than 7 minutes, I'm going to go for a sprint here. So let's start right in 1995. That's my first moment as a YRE. You will see me right there on the bottom right in red. That's me. That was Mission Antarctica. It was one of the very first international missions on the YRE program. It was actually, unlike the name, it was actually in the Arctic Ocean, very close to the North Pole, in a ship called the Antarctica, which is right behind us there. And that was probably one of the foundational moments of my life, not just as a YRE, but as a human being, in terms of environmental awareness, in terms of international communication, and the creation of networks that in many cases are sustained to this day. And it also created a little bit of a bug in me for both traveling and particularly for the Arctic. So that is the Van Mien Fjorden right there on the bottom right, which is where we were staying as students with a crew of scientists looking at climate change back in the 1990s, when it was only just starting to be considered or studied. Right after that, or right around that time, in my high school, I was a young journalist at the time. We had a newspaper in our school, an award-winning newspaper that published a pretty decent print run. And I was one of the young journalists there. That's where I got started. And I'll come back to that in a little bit, because at that time, I was very focused on environment. I was writing about environmental issues for that newspaper, and would for many years. I was also participating on a number of other environmental activities. One of them with an organization that comes out of the Republic of Ireland, Coastwatch, which had spread all over the continent. And Coastwatch Europe basically split the coastline in small portions, and groups of kids and citizens would just get together and raid 500 meters of front line to collect any plastic and any other pollution that they would find. And of course, it would be helpful in terms of environmental process, but also in terms of getting awareness to young kids, like I was at the time, about the beauty of those locations and the need to get rid of those plastics. Now, if we fast forward to 2001, I was privileged to participate in Mission Azores, which, as you can see, was really boring. I don't even remember anymore what the subject matter of Mission Azores was. I just remember that it was spectacular. That was the first mission in which I participated as a mentor. And for the last 15 years or so, I've been a mentor off and on to YRE and sometimes Eco Schools programs. And I'm a member of the international jury as well. So I've remained engaged ever since. One thing that the mission has done to me personally was create a fascination with the Arctic, and in particular with the beauty and the fragility of that environment and how that affects us all. Now, so you can see here that this is much more recent. I continue going to the Arctic. I've shot a film there just 3 years ago. And traveled extensively in Arctic Canada and in European Arctic as well. I would love to recommend that all of you who are interested in the environment pick up this book by a good friend of mine, Sheila Watt-Cloutier. She was shortlisted for the Nobel Prize for her work in the defense of the environment and culture of the Arctic peoples. And this book, The Right to Be Cold, is a really good testament that I would like to share with you all. The other thing that it did was kind of put me in this position where I just want more expeditions. I want to go to more of these places. So the boat that I was on is now on its third owner. Its name is now Tara, and Tara is part of a foundation called Tara Oceans. And I have kind of a new aim, and the aim is to go to that red dot over there in a mission with Tara. So I'm working on that. You could follow them right there at oceanstaraexpeditions.org. They look at oceanic health in general. So some missions are related to plastic, others are related to biodiversity. I highly recommend that you follow them. And here I am, a fully grown-up man, a former YRE that, as we always say, is always a YRE. So here I am now planning to go on a mission again. January 2021, I'm joining the Mars Desert Research Crew in Utah, which you see on the screen right there, and basically we'll live like an astronaut for the period of time that we're there with the whole crew. So and I'll be the crew journalist. So basically what started as YRE continues into my grown-up age as we go along. Now, I mentioned that I was a journalist in my school initially, and that comes precisely to the next point. one of the very first stories that I published relates not necessarily to plastic, but to the origins of plastic. It was a story about a man called Ken Saro-Wiwa, who was unfortunately victimized by the Nigerian government back in the day due to his activism for the environment in the Niger Delta. And that was the very first story that I wrote when I was maybe 16. Fast forward to just 5 years ago, and I joined hands with a friend who wrote a book about the same subject, and that is now being turned into a TV series that I am producing called Black Mangrove. And what's interesting in it is that it connects to plastic in the sense that what is required for us to build plastic, to have plastic in all through our lives, is oil production. And oil production causes exactly what we see on the screen here, all over the world, not just in Nigeria. There's hotspots all over the world, even here in Canada, that look exactly like this, where human rights are not respected and environmental destruction is just incredible. So it's a full circle in many ways. And that full circle reminds me of this little graph that Erika shared with me that I'm sure she'll tell you a little bit more about, but is the principle behind her company. And we'll talk about that more in a little bit. So now this brings us to this time. Here we are at a time of COVID, and all of a sudden we're just stuck at home. Things have changed overnight. They have changed in a matter of days. One day we're doing our normal lives. We're going to school, going to work, traveling, meeting friends, going to a restaurant, and suddenly we're all stuck at home. Not only that, but we also had a few days of chaos. You might remember the toilet paper gate. Then we went into a survival mode, and Erika will talk a little bit more about the survival mode, but to me, this is what it represents. The fact that we all went into this place where we hid ourselves from the world that we usually connect with. And I think it has never been more apparent how interconnected we are, but also how interdependent we are. So our resilience is really inside ourselves, but at the same time also very connected to what's around us, both in our community and internationally, as it's just become very apparent. And that brings us to the distance paradox, the fact that we are all over the place right now, connecting right here on Zoom. This has become way more common during this pandemic, but at the same time, unable to actually travel and see each other in person. So this kind of brings us back to the idea of thinking globally, but acting locally, and knowing that being hyper-local is relevant at the global level. If we take actions at the local level, we know that multiplied by millions, those actions, small as they may be, are big, and they have a big impact. So if we are at home and we are creating problems with garbage, with higher consumption of plastics, maybe more takeaway, especially now that restaurants have started to reopen, then those little actions can be taken to reduce our footprint. That could mean as soon as it's safe to, take your reusable box to a restaurant. But I will leave that to Erika as well, because she does have a very good example about it. There are benefits, of course, if you think about it. We had a lot less traffic, a lot less pollution, and a lot of wildlife back in the cities. But then, of course, we also had the suspension of recycling services, for instance, almost overnight in a lot of places for the safety of workers. And we also have people ordering massive amounts of things on Amazon and other online delivery services because they couldn't really go safely to other places. So there seems to have been a setback for environmental sustainability, and in particular in the reduction of plastics and cardboards and packaging in general. But it seems like we're bouncing back. I think what I would like to do now is move on to exploring the idea about the YRE at home, which I thought was really great that YRE was pushing this this idea that you should be looking around your communities from the safety of your home and looking for things to report. There were so many stories that were worth reporting while COVID has taken hold. So I would ask you to go on your poll app again, and I'm going to share the screen just momentarily. And so bear with me, there's going to be a new question in a second. All right, what I would like to know is how many of you may have been thinking, okay. I think you can see it now. So how many of you have been thinking about stories you can tell from home? And which stories? And so this is I believe, a type-in question. So let's see if we get some results here. Okay, no young reporters thinking of stories. Oh, plastic at home. There you go. That is a powerful one. I think Erika will have a lot to say about this particular story. Love the view from the window. Pupils took photos. That's great. Very nice. I look forward to seeing some of these articles on the jury discussions this year. Home audits, lovely. That's getting deep. All right. So keep them coming if you want. I'm going to move on to the next one. And the next one is going to be coming. Now, if you have those ideas, have you actually started reporting? Has it involved some careful outings in your area? Are you doing it just from the inside? Are you just researching and writing? Oh, there's a typo over there. Sorry. All right, good to know that nobody's going out. All staying safe. So let's see how these stories from home will come out. Very exciting. Okay. And I think there might be, oh, no, so that's it. So I'm going to go back to this at the end of the presentation. We'll come back to this conversation, but for now, let's go back to the PowerPoint, and I have a couple more things to share with you before. Oh, I do have one more question, sorry. So my question is, what are the worst kinds of plastics out there? What do you think are the worst culprits in plastic pollution everywhere in our communities? And particularly now in this time of COVID, there's a few new candidates, let's put it that way. Netting fruit, oh yeah, that is really bad. Look at that beautiful tree that you guys are creating. I think there's probably a new culprit that needs to go on that list, unfortunately, and that's plastic gloves that, since Corona started, have been appearing all over the oceans, very sadly. All right, so now that was the last question for now. And let's revert back to the main screen. And what we're doing now is coming to my friend Erika. So Erika is she's an entrepreneur She's going to tell you a little bit about her ventures that relate specifically to plastic and particularly to single-use plastics. She started with Wisebird, and Wisebird was based on a principle that had to do with a circular flow of consumption, which she'll explain in a little bit. And she's now with a new venture called Inuit. So I'm going to now bring on my friend Erika from Wisebird.
Thank you, Pedro. Hello, everyone. I know that this is a little bit strange because we are not used to have this kind of interactions where we know that you are listening to us, that you are here with us, and even when we cannot see you, we know that we are here together. And we are here together because we are all worried about you are calling it useless, and I love this word, useless plastic, because it doesn't have a point, right? And yeah, so that's why Wisebird was born. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit about me. For me, I named my company Wisebird because a little bird changed my life. I'm originally from Mexico, and I was very curious about the world. I wanted to travel abroad and to see other cultures. So I went to India in 2014. And while being there, I don't know why, but I watched a documentary on plastic pollution. And this documentary was focusing on useless useless plastic. And it changed completely my life because it was showing a little bird full of plastic, and in an instant I could recognize every single brand. So I was seeing plastic that was red, and I was linking it completely with Coca-Cola, for instance. And in a second, I could recognize and realize the impact of my own industry, because I'm not sure I told you, but I was working in marketing. So I was helping companies around the world to pollute and to inspire massive consumerism. I think it's the next slide, Petra. Yeah. So I think for me, I never felt accountable, even when I was working. I think I was so focused on my job, so focused on making people buy, that I completely forgot that I was a human. So for me, that little bird was the moment that changed my life and made me realize that I'm a human, that even when I'm making business, I'm still part of the ecosystem. So this has been my journey. In 2014, as you can see, I was drinking from plastic bottles without thinking or feeling anything, using disposables without realizing the impact. I was persuading others to mass consume, selling and consuming products we didn't need. So in 2015, I made the chose to reduce my plastic consumption. I said, okay, that's enough. I want to start with plastic bags, no? So I started to reduce my need of plastic bags. But in 2018, I realized that giving up to single-use plastic was not that difficult. And the most difficult part was going beyond self-interest, like avoiding products I really wanted, that I didn't need it, but I wanted, like chips. And I did it. I decreased my plastic consumption by 80%, but plastic was still there. Everyone was still consuming. And it was very painful for me. And I started to think, why doesn't anybody do anything about it? And I was very frustrated going to the supermarkets and seeing everything packaged in plastic. So in 2019, I decided to become that somebody. And I created Wisebird. That Wisebird is a startup that is focused on creating systematic alternatives to single-use plastic. Single-use plastic was huge, and I wanted to focus in something that I as a single person could handle. And I decided to do the takeout industry zero waste, because I love takeout. It was one of my pain points. I always needed to bring my container with me, but if I really wanted my food and I didn't have my container, then I needed to pass through this painful point of refusing. And then later, COVID came to the game. Just 3 weeks after we launched the program, in the city of Toronto, where I am currently living with Pedro. Everyone was super happy in the community when they hear about the program. I think everyone was waiting for it, like we were all waiting for someone to do something, and the community accepted the program super, super well. COVID came here to everywhere in the world, and I started to feel very sad, because I felt like sustainability suddenly was not a priority anymore. And I understood that we were on survival mode, and it's fine, like I also know that not everyone is able to be in a safe space today, and that there are more worries in their lives than sustainability, and that maybe they need food instead of just worrying about the packaging, or maybe they need a house and they don't have a house, maybe they have lost their jobs, maybe one of them are your parents, no? Because maybe you cannot see these pains, but maybe you can start realizing that at home everything is starting to be a little bit chaotic. My mom and my dad are worrying about something, you don't know, but something is happening at home. We cannot go out. So for me, it was a huge opportunity, because I started to realize again that I was living in automatic, that I didn't stop and think what was happening, and that again I was starting to have a lot of ego. And for me, I think this is part of the beauty of COVID, and you can also think about all the things that COVID has taught you. And for me, it reminds me again that we are part of the ecosystem. We are another animal in the ecosystem, and that we every day forget that. So one of my biggest questions today for you is, has the waste at home increased? Has your family consumption increased or decreased during COVID? Let's see.
And you can go on the app again.
Yes, I'm also replying. So let's see. This is. Yes. Well, this is beautiful because it's a balance, no? But I think the issue is not like the amount we are consuming, but how are we consuming, right? And so what have you ever, like the next question is, do you know what happens to your waste after it's thrown in the bin? Have you, like when you are buying or your parents are buying, do you think about the end of the life of the products? Oh, cool. Yeah, so here we have a right answer actually for this one. So it's B and C. Oh, but we don't have B and C. Oh, shoot. Okay, so B and C was, part of it gets recycled, but part of it goes to landfill over oceans, lakes, rivers, and or shipped to other countries. Okay, so yeah, so I think for me that was my biggest change in life. I think the popularity of recycling has been like high, and I even trust recycling before, and I was not trusting, but relying on recycling. And I think that was for me the biggest change of paradigm in my life, and why I have started my company. It's because I don't know if you know, but where are the 3 R's coming from? And recycling, for instance. What is their meaning, or how did we unintentionally memorize it? No? So, yeah. So we have the traditional 3 R's, and we have the reduce, reuse, and recycle, and we give more weight every time to recycle, but it's actually the end of it. And no, I think yeah, okay, well, maybe we can come back to that one. No, it is fine, it is good. So how did this started to, like, where is it coming from? I'm not sure if you have learned the story about plastic, and in what time in our history plastic came to the game, because plastic wasn't here in our history since a long time ago. In 1955, we started to have this throwaway living, and companies and corporations started to solve the idea that single-use items were the modern lifestyle. That why are you bothering to wash your dishes if you can just throw them away? You know, like, and it started to get very popular. But people were littering, and the streets were very dirty, or because before we were placing paper on the streets, but the packaging became plastic. So plastic, it doesn't go away. And we started to realize more and more plastic on the streets, and pollution and littering. So in 1970, we had a movement of becoming environmentally conscious in 1970s. And as I wanted you to realize that every change in the world had started from the community. Every single positive change have started from us, because we, the consumers, are the most affected, and we are actually buying everything, right? But at some point we realize that, oops, there is something wrong going. There is something going wrong. So in 1965 and 1970, thanks to this movement, the term of reduce, reuse, and recycle was created to help people to, instead of littering, placing it on the right bin. The big question in here is, how efficient is recycling on tackling our waste issues? And I want you to think every time we consume to don't rely on recycling. Why? Because, well, this statistic was thought because I thought that the majority of the participants were going to be in Northern Ireland, but it's roughly the same in around the world, like some 3% more difference. By 2019, only roughly 50% of waste was being recycled in Northern Ireland. So if we start thinking and wondering where is the other 50%, I think it's shocking. 80% of all litter on Northern Ireland beaches is plastic. And the last statistic is one of the most painful for me, and is that it is estimated that up to 99% of seabirds will have ingested plastic by 2050. So if we move to the next one, I have two extra R's above before even we start reducing and reusing and recycling. For me, something that has changed the way of my way of living and my way of creating a positive impact around me is, before everything, I rethink. And I challenge you also to start being curious and critical with the way we choose to live, with the way we think about we consume. And I have some questions for you. But before that, I want you to always consider, what are the things we are buying? Where are they coming from? Imagine it. And you can also read on the products, for instance, the origin. And where do they go after we are done with them? And I have a question, a dynamic question.
The question is going up now. Examples of
Thank you, Pedro.
sorry, it's just loading, so bear with me for a second.
And while he's loading, I can ask you also to remember, what was the last thing you or you asked your parents to buy? What was the last thing? And I think, cool. What is the last product you asked your parents to buy? Oh my God. Yes. Okay. Yes. Oh, of course. Yeah.
Not a lot of plastic there.
There is not any snack. To be honest. Oh yes. Okay. Cool.
All right.
Thank you, Claire.
Next
so I
one?
think, next one is, what is the one thing you could rethink in your consumption? Oh, yes, depends how we, like, do we need so many pens, for instance? How do we take out? Do I really need this? Yes. Oh, I love it. I think just replacing with, So here it's a tricky thing with biodegradable, and it's part of the. Let's move to the question. I'm gonna go very, very fast with refuse.
Okay. So you want the PowerPoint again?
Yes, just to close up, and that's it. Because I think the biggest issue is also to say no. To maybe we don't even think about the no, and trying to say no more often, even if it's free. And I think sometimes we think about biodegradable or compostable items, and we feel that we don't have guilty anymore, but the material is not the issue, but the way we consume it. Single use. Everything that is single use, it will be, it will have an environmental impact. So, yeah. I just wanted to let you with that one, and thinking that a lion doesn't hunt 3-4 gazelles to stock in the backyard, in their backyards, or to resell it to other animals, right? Like they just hunt and kill when they need it. So I think that's a way of living for me, to refuse everything that you really don't need, and to empower yourself. Good. Thank you very much.
So I'll jump in with just one quick thing. We'll have time to discuss more stuff on the Q&A. Sorry, I'll get the camera going. But for now, I wanted to share with you something that Keep Northern Ireland Beautiful has challenged me with, and that's to make your plastic promise. You can go on this website, www.liveherelovehere.org, and make your pledge. It does include a self-assessment that allows you to see where you actually stand and how well are you doing, and then you can pledge how you want to improve in the next while. And perhaps 2020 or 2020 is the ideal moment for it, because we do have more time to evaluate things that on our regular busy lives we don't have time to evaluate. So I did my pledge last night, and I am very proud to say that Claire just informed me that I'm almost at the top of the leaderboards. So turns out I'm not doing super badly, but even then, when I'm hanging out with Erika, I always feel guilty to even be holding a coffee cup. So get your reusable coffee cups out as soon as it's safe. I know a lot of places are not accepting them right now. The same with your takeaway containers, get bento boxes. And in your community, start to implement those things. When you go to the store and plastic is being given to you automatically, don't take your fabric bag. When you're going shopping, don't get your cucumbers wrapped in saran. Don't get your lettuces wrapped. Get things in a local grocer that allows you to buy unpackaged stuff. I know we have a challenge right now in health terms. I know there's limitations in a lot of places. We have limitations here as well. But this is where we start to get creative. This is where we start to look at our community and see where can we best support the ones that are advancing an agenda that we can agree with. So in my case, I've opted to not go to a grocery store ever since COVID started. I have a grocery store 100 meters from my home, but I also have 2 green grocers and a local bakery. And this is where I do my shopping. And ever since I've started to do that, when COVID started, basically I have no plastic waste whatsoever related to fruit and veggies, because I just get them kind of straight from the farm. So maybe look for options like this in your community and consider those little things that you can audit, that I know you know how to audit in your community. Take the time that we have now and take advantage of it. See what you can improve. So my pledge was that by the end of this year, I want to just reduce the wrapped food insofar as possible, insofar as is legal in this COVID situation, and to go back to my reusable coffee mugs and takeaway containers as soon as they let us. So I'm going to wrap here, because I know Claire and Claire probably have a lot of questions that they want to throw at us. Pedro and Erika, out.
Folks, thank you so much. That was so engaging. And in the interest of time, I'm going to get straight into it. We've got a great question from Kazan, who asks, what do you recommend for schools to implement in order to foster student awareness on the importance of reducing single-use plastic usage?
Well, I don't know if Erika has another suggestion. I always go back to one simple thing. To me, it's all about how you tell the story. How do you do the storytelling? How do you engage? Everyone connects with something that you can personally relate to. So I think it's important to relate to the human and biologic impacts in our immediate community, the things that we can see, the things that we can sense and understand. And I'm sure within the context of a school, there are clear impacts. What I usually like to say is that those impacts in your school grounds, they are the same extrapolated on a wider scale. So I feel like, for instance, the Eco Schools program is really good at auditing how a school is doing. And I feel that the YRE program kind of builds on that. So I feel like it's important to start really early by trying to engage students with clear data, clear consequences, and have everyone be very straight on what the facts are. You know, right now we're in the middle of a COVID pandemic, and people started to wear gloves. Not medical personnel. I'm talking about everyone outside. And unfortunately, a lot of people are just throwing those gloves away. I've already seen some horrible statistics about the millions and millions of gloves that ended up in the bottom of the ocean. So I think those are the things that we need to make very clear to students and to explain how does that impact us, right? Because the reality is that Erika mentioned that birds by 2050, 99% of them will have eaten plastic. Unfortunately, that also means that we will have eaten plastic. That means that plastic will be in our food chain. So I think we need to tell the whole story and allow this young generation to get in on the ground floor and embrace it as a whole system.
Yes, I think I just adding to what Pedro said, I think it's very important to understand the students also, because not every person has the same motivations. So I will say that to start with an incentrical search of motivation, maybe a questionnaire where you can ask why would they care on climate change, and always remembering that it's their future, right? And it's the best is to empower them, that every single person, no matter your age, no matter your sex, no matter your nationality, everyone can make a difference. And I think that we always forget that our every daily choice makes a difference, either positive or negative, and we choose every day whether it's positive or negative. So I would say to start with the motivations and always remembering that some of us, we are very logical, some of us, we are very emotional. So every person will get the information in a different way.
Thank you, guys. I'm just going to ask another question here. Just in terms of journalistic investigation, do you think, like, young people, is it like shocking images and these harsh stories, is that impactful, or do we need to use positive images and positive stories? Like, what have you found that really works?
It's an important fact. Those images, negative and making people guilty, it works only for 20% of the population, no more. So the ones that have the biggest impact are the ones that are inclusive. Instead of picturing the worst scenario, the unique thing that works against fear, it's hope. So give to the world a hope for the future, to look after something like what's the future of the world, and I see it positive. So people react more with positive messages, and also a lot of collaboration and collaborative words are very strong.
It's funny. I was going to give an example that is not exactly environmental, but I was once driving on a country road in Iceland, and I confess that I am a slightly fast driver. And Iceland is full of empty roads, and it was really nice. So I was not speeding, however. So all of a sudden they had a speed camera, and unlike the speed cameras in all these other places that we've all driven in, the speed camera in Iceland didn't tell me that I was speeding. It said with a smiley face, "Your speed is perfect. Have a great day." And I felt so great about that. And I did not speed for the entirety of the day because I felt that I was being invited in on my own accord. So I feel like what Erika was just saying really resonates in terms of the environment as well.
I would like to ask you something. Erika has mentioned in her presentation, what has COVID taught you? And Chloe has a question for you, well, I would say for both of you. So how can we get everyone to return to a new normal and not to the old normal, so which was extremely harming to the environment?
I feel like there is, I don't know about everybody else. I saw that the statistics on how people are consuming at home are very even, like on all sides. I know that I've consumed less since I've been at home. You know, less takeaway, less coffee to go because I'm not really there and the coffee is not open anyway. There is maybe an increase on packaging, like boxes that come from Amazon or any other company that is sending stuff home. But in terms of shopping, I think we're all kind of shopping in a much more conscious way because we have to go just once a week. So we have to be clear about what we want and what we need. So I feel if we translate that into moving forward, evaluating more carefully what we're buying, how we're buying it. And as I pointed out just a few minutes ago, if when you're going to get your veggies, you deliberately avoid the veggies that are packaged. And maybe let the companies know, if you feel so inclined and you're a little bit more activist, let the companies know, I love your bananas, I'm not buying them because you're putting them in a wrap. And I don't want to have to do that. There are now grocery stores that have decided to communicate to their suppliers that if they wrap certain produce, they're not selling them in their store. And this is becoming more common. So I feel like when we put more pressure on those grocery stores, they will put more pressure on the suppliers. And we do have a situation now that unfortunately will last a little longer. People are feeling unsafe. No one really wants stuff that other people have been touching. And so I feel like we need to allow the next couple of months, maybe 3 months, to kind of simmer down and for everyone to feel a little bit more tranquil in risk management. But then after that, I feel like the time that we've had now to reevaluate, most importantly, to reevaluate what we actually need. We all thought that we needed so many things. Turns out that we actually don't need a lot of those things. We might be missing some of those creature comforts that we got used to, but guess what? We all realize that we can survive with way less than what we were used to. I think that's an important takeaway from this period.
Yeah, I love that last part, that we don't need so many things. So I will say that the first thing is to research, to do your research, to investigate, to start thinking and seeing, observe, you know, like the best scientists and I think journalists and reporters are very based into that. And I am a very extroverted person, so I think I didn't do a lot of analysis before in my life. I was just like having like trying to look for my happiness, that I completely forgot to observe and to analyze. So for me, that was one of the biggest changes in my life, that now I observe a lot. How the things are working, how the people is thinking, how people is acting, how I am acting, how I am consuming. And I think when we start thinking about, like, this is a global issue that needs to be tackled very locally. And locally is even hyper locally, no? Starting from home, starting from our community. And then it will have a huge impact in the world. And one of the biggest and very powerful things I have done, that I can see that it has impacted more than telling my family or my friends, don't do this, don't do that, it's refusing. whenever someone gives me something, I thank them a lot, but I said, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to reduce my plastic consumption, or I'm trying to reduce my consumption. And I think that refusal shocks a lot everyone. So as Pedro was saying, maybe writing an email to the chips, and I'm talking about chips because I love chips, but I hate the packaging. Writing them to them, you know, I love your product. I hope it can be more sustainable, your packaging in the future. And thinking that what will make the bigger impact.
Yeah. Claire, there's a question here that I kind of feel like we should address. There's if you would allow me.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes.
The question that caught my eye is it easy being an activist?
Yes, I was about to ask you that one. That's from Leah.
All right, so I'll answer that on my own way, and I think I can speak for Erika in a way, but then I'll let her complete the rest. So first of all, a lot of people that are considered activists don't consider themselves activists. Yesterday, I was on a call with director Deepa Mehta, who's what some would call a director activist. And they asked her, why does she do controversial movies? And she answered, I don't do movies to be controversial. People make them controversial. So when we go out trying to do something that we believe is right, that's not necessarily activism. That's doing what's right. It is not easy to be right when to insist on a point when everyone else or a lot of people around you are insisting on the opposite point. So it is kind of a lonely walk. You need to steel yourself and have a thick skin and be sure of your convictions. And, you know, like Erika, refuse things, not eat your chips when you want to eat them, not get the takeaway when you want the takeaway. It takes some sacrifice, but there are gains, right? I didn't know I was an activist until on my last film, I got a nomination for an award that I didn't know until the night of the award had a second nomination, which was for Best Environmental Activism Movie. I had no idea that I had done an environmental activist movie. But apparently the things that I've learned throughout my years with YRE are so seeped into what my belief system is that they translated automatically into what I put on screen. So I feel like basically just do what you believe, what you think is right. And if people want to call that activism, then it is activism. I call it civic engagement.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I never felt like an activist until I was in a room full of activists, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe I am an activist. And I would say that an activist is someone that acts. So you don't need to be famous, you don't need to create a company, you don't need to create and get awards, you don't need all of that to be an activist. You can be an activist today. If you act and with your convictions, then you're an activist. And I think it's easy when you really believe it, and when you do it because you have a passion for that. Yes, there are some pains, but these pains becomes I don't know, like it empowers you. You know, like yes, it's very painful to don't buy my chips, but it empowers me because I'm like, I'm not a sheep. I am a leader. You know, I govern my life. I am able to take and own my decisions. So I would say that it's easy to be an activist when you have the passion. You just need to find your passion, you know, and your why you are doing it. It doesn't matter why you are doing it if you believe in it.
Brilliant, great, thank you so much. I think that's a great one to finish on. So we've just ran a wee bit over time, but we're good. So thank you so much, PJ and Erika. That was really, really interesting and really inspiring. And I hope our young reporters for the environment have taken a lot away from that and will challenge plastic packaging where they live and take eco action and make positive change. So as PJ said, please sign your plastic promise after this webinar, and thank you very much. Look out for our Eco Schools NI Facebook page, and we'll have more webinars on there from September time onwards. So thank you very much, everybody. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.